Hey, what's up? I'm Kirk of Effectatron, and today I'm going to show you how to use displacement with Redshift and with objects that are modeled and stuff that have UV maps and all this stuff, where you, rather than like deforming them and making them weird, you could take it from looking like this to looking like that, right? So just without screwing up everything and making your model look all weird, this is going to be the key. And the main thing we're going to talk about today is how to isolate bits and pieces of your model, use the remesher and its new feature, the transfer attributes model, which I need to give a shout out to Mr. Exocomp from my Discord about that. And it allows you to take all of your tags that you have on your model, all of these polygon selection tags over here, and transfer them even though you are changing the geometry. It's going to make it work, which is huge. So that's a game changer. So we'll talk about best workflow tips on what level of geometry you need, and then how to use the Redshift displacement and the Redshift node and all that stuff to get it looking how you want it to look without messing it up, and then how best to approach it on a model with a bunch of pieces and how to work step by step through it rather than trying to do it as a big mass thing, because I think it's going to be your best bet. So it's just going to add that extra step of realism to everything. Getting that displacement versus the bump map, obviously, it's just always going to be just better looking. It really is when you get it working right. So very cool. Very cool. Nice. Okay, so one thing before we get started, I do want to say the Really Rad Render Sweepstakes is ongoing, with your chance to just create, have fun, spend an hour or two tops. Don't go crazy. You can spend more if you want, but I'm not asking you to do more than an hour of your time to just have fun, right? And create a scene. Downloaded that from Gumroad, and then enter for your chance to win these awesome prizes. And while that is going on, I'm also celebrating the fact that we're way over 50,000 subscribers. So we've also got a big sale on everything, 50% off all of my Mind in Motion workshop courses, the giant workshop itself, and all the individual chapters broken up individually, as well as everything I have on Gumroad, is all 50% off using code REALLYRAD. So I want to make sure that you're aware of that, and be sure to keep up with all the Really Rad Render stuff this summer, because it's going to really cool sweepstakes and your chance to win for free. It's just a random drawing, so literally anyone can enter and anyone can win. So there's really no reason not to, especially if you're a beginner. Should be a lot of fun. Okay, so hopefully this will help you just elevate your models and stuff using Redshift displacement without screwing up the geometry and the UVs of your object. All right, let's get into it. So there's a couple ways you can make it easier for yourself, because the main thing with displacement is basically the difference between displacement and a bump map, obviously, is that displacement actually changes the geometry. So geometry is a big part of it. And when you talk about geometry, there's two ways to change the geometry. Well, three ways to change the geometry of your model. One quick way would be to, there's obviously, besides actually modeling it and going into it itself, is adding a subdivision surface on there. That's going to just basically double the geometry each time. And then on top of that, there is the remesher, which is new, which is nice. Not completely new, but newer. And it has a new feature that makes it a game changer. And then the third option is adding the Redshift object tag and using the tessellation at render time, which is going to be the fastest way, but also sometimes not the easiest to work with. Because you don't see it until render time. Okay, so let's talk about probably the coolest way, and that is to do subdivide. So let's just talk about doing a piece of this whole model, and because trying to do that would be my first step of advice when you're trying to do something like fix a model, is work with displacement in small chunks. Don't try to fix displacement overall, because it all kind of is very dependent on individual models. So rather than selecting the whole model, adding displacement to the whole thing, and adding subdivision to the whole thing, we're going to get mixed results. Whereas if we come in here and we work on just this wall first with the selection tool here, what we can do is hit UF and fill. And that's going to let us work in these nice chunks. And that's my first step of advice, is work in these chunks. So we're going to go ahead and hold Shift and click F, and that will allow us to work on this wall here on this model. Because we have this nice stone, which probably has a really nice displacement map. In case you don't know, you can come in here. We'll go to the render view, and we'll toggle this on before we have any displacement or anything going on. And we'll take a look at it. Okay, so by default, it looks pretty good, right? This is the bump map. So that's the very first question you ask is, for your shot, do you need displacement? Because just because something has displacement doesn't mean you need to enable it as of now, right? But let's say, okay, that's a cool establishing shot. That's fine. But maybe we probably could use it here. But let's say we have a character that's going to be climbing up this wall. So we want this next shot to be kind of a side profile down the wall. So when we look at that, it becomes very, very obvious that this is a texture map with a bump map. Now it looks fine. You know, it's like video game level quality like over the last few years. But now you've come to expect like a little bit more out of stuff, especially stuff with displacement. So how do we enable displacement here? Well, the first thing we want to do, I don't know why I closed that because I need that, is I want to use the material selection tool to isolate this material here so we can make sure that we have it set up correct. So we can grab the material select and click that, actually click on our render image, and it's going to select that material for us, which is perfect because we can scroll down here and we can see it is brick, stone, old, which is perfect. So now we can come in here, open that up, go into the displacement settings, and make sure that it's set to -0.5 in the min, -0.5, and and 0.5 in the max. So it's going to push in and push out, rather than just push out, which is going to move it around. This way it'll stay kind of in the same spot. Okay, so that's the first step. Nice. So with that selected, what we can do now is just try to add more geometry in here without subdividing it. So what we're going to do is with this selected, we're going to hit U and then Shift S. And that's going to allow us to bring up the subdivide with the option of turning off smooth subdivisions. So this is one way we could do it, right? Another way we could do it is with this selected is hold Alt and add a subdivision surface. And inside of this, change the type from cat mole Clark to open subdiv by linear, the bottom option. And the reason you would do that is because basically open subdiv by linear is really good at keeping hard edges. Not necessarily making it the best option for this scenario, but it does work really well. Basically, this is exactly what we would be doing if we did U Shift S and then added it. So here we have a lot more geometry, but now obviously it's done it across our whole model rather than just our wall that we were selecting. So that's one big difference, right? Because it's applying it to everything. But honestly, it's probably fine because it's not really too bad. Yeah, we'll work with that. But let's say we don't want to do that. Okay, let's go back to the original plan with the U Shift S, and we can just crank it up to like 5 maybe, and get it pretty small like that. Okay, so it looks pretty much the same, but now we're really only affecting the wall with the rock surface on it that we want to affect. So we're not having to screw up the geometry of anything else right now. And so we have these weird instances on this wall where we have these like, yes, they're squares, polygons, quads, whatever you want to call them. Quads would be the appropriate thing to call them, not squares. But we have this a little bit here where we got like a tighter area here and here versus here. So what's going to happen is when we add our displacement tessellation, it's going to be denser in some areas than not. And I really want it to be more even across the whole wall. So besides coming in here and like actually redoing it myself, this is where we can right click and split it. Boom. And when we right click and split, we make it its own object. And we can go back to the original object, building B, and delete it. So it's gone. And now we have it as a standalone object by itself as building B1. So this is the wall with the geometry. So now whether we have it isolated by itself, it's actually really easy to grab it now, throw it into a remesher with Alt Remesh, and we want to make sure we have transfer attributes, because what that's going to do is with this new game-changing button, basically you can keep all of your polygon selection tags and all that stuff and all the UV mapping you've done and keep it working while remeshing the topology of your scene. So we've remeshed it, and we can actually come in here and even make it denser if we want. We can up it to like 200, and we're going to keep those UVs how they were and just add more geometry. And now you can see we've got much more even geometry throughout our whole wall here, which is perfect, right? So you don't have to make it like super small, because we just want to make it good enough so that when we add the Redshift tessellation step, that's when we'll get those really small details. Okay, so it's kind of like you want to, part one is get your geometry decent, pretty good, so it keeps its shape and it's nice and even for Redshift displacement to work. That's going to be part two, is you want Redshift tessellation to work. So now that we have that done and selected, we can just hit C, make it editable, no big deal. Okay, now with this selected, right click, render tags, Redshift object tag. Now with this, we go to geometry and we can turn on tessellation and turn on displacement. Now I know for a fact with this model, we need to turn down the displacement to like 0.2-ish, and that should work pretty well. Now we're going to leave these as default for now, and we'll even leave on smooth edges for now because we have so much geometry. We shouldn't have any issues with like our corners getting messed up and stuff like that, but we'll see. So now what's going to happen is it's going to basically subdivide it more and apply the displacement when we hit render now. So let's go back to our original shot here a bit. Oh yeah, there we go. We're back to exactly the same shot. Perfect. So before, we can keyframe that and then turn that off. And now we can do after. And one thing we want to do whenever you use Redshift displacement after you get your geometry kind of how you want it is I like to hit the snowflake, and that's going to basically bake in the tessellation. I've mentioned this in several tutorials, but this is going to basically do the tessellation one time, and as long as you leave the IPR window playing, you should be able to move around and stuff without it having to re-cook every single time, because that's an issue a lot of people run into with Redshift displacement. And basically this is going to help solve that. And you can see how much better that looks. Super nice. So before, after, before, after. So much better, right? Awesome. So the thing we need to check is, are we running into issues with stuff like this? Looks like it could be an issue. It's really not. We actually are not encroaching on our window, which was a really big issue when I tried to do it without it. We have some stuff like this where it's clipping into that a little bit. It's really not that bad. You could probably come in here and move this up a little bit or pull that down. It might be displacing a little more than it needs to, but man, that has just amplified the quality of this model so much better. So now you can do the same step, rinse and repeat for the corner bits here and stuff like that. And again, you can see the difference here with the quality of the way the wall looks here versus right here, where we didn't mess with the geometry. So this looks like kind of bad, or this looks really good. So kind of a cool compare thing there. But yeah, we can move around and our wall looks so good. And it looks good from far out. Of course, it doesn't look that much better than when it was displaced, because, I mean, when it was just a bump map because you're far away. But the cool thing is that if you come in here and try to get that cool shot of a character climbing up the wall or whatever, excuse me. If you come in here and try to get that cool shot of a character climbing up the wall, you're going to have so much better results. So that's like an easy way. So you can see that we have a lot more detail in our actual shot than we have geometry. So that's where you want to get the geometry close enough, but not good. So you might be asking, well, how do I know? It's just kind of trial and error. And what I would suggest to figure out that point is baby step in actual geometry and lower the minimum edge length and maximum subdivisions here in the Redshift before doing it with the real geometry, because this is always going to be faster and give us some nice results. We could probably back this up to like 0.1. and I'll need to recook it because we are changing it. Yeah, so now it's looking better than a bump. We probably could split the difference between the two because this looks good, but it doesn't look that much better than the bump. But we are not clipping into stuff as much, so I think there's somewhere in between these two, like 0.15, whoops, 0.15 and 0.15 might be the sweet spot. And so that's kind of trial and error, but we're getting that really nice detail from the displacement. The only issue now, obviously, is that now we kind of see just the amount of detail and realism the displacement adds on this wall. Now we're not seeing it here. So if you're going to have something else in the shot that needs it, you're going to want to go through kind of the same process where you basically subdivide it and then remesh it if you need to. I don't know that we need to for some of these, because if they are come in pretty square, the only reason we threw it in the remesher was because it had a lot of triangles and some gaps that were like higher density pockets than the rest, and the remesher is really good at evening out the displacement values. Yeah, this is it. 0.15. That looks so good. Awesome. This is a little wonky here. We could probably fix that. I'm not sure why that one specific spot got wonky, but this looks much, much better. And again, we can see the difference between that and this wall that we didn't add the remesher to. And we'll be able to really see the detail in this wall versus this wall. And they both have displacement tag. Actually, this one doesn't have displacement tag on it. Let's throw it on there just for the sake of doing it. We will throw it on the whole thing. This should be this, yeah? Yeah. Okay, so we're going to put the exact same displacement tag on this wall. So we have, our wall here that's been subdivided when remeshed versus the original geo. And we'll see just how different those two will look. And you can see how this one has lost its shape completely. It's gotten very wonky and wobbly. It's kind of whimsical, honestly. But we've definitely not kept the detail and stuff that we have from this. All right, so if we've warped our wall, it's gotten very strange. So let's go ahead and just fix that real quick. And all we need to do for that would, again, let's just repeat the process. Just to be clear, we'll hit UF, and we'll hold Shift and select this whole wall chunk. Right click and split, and we'll grab this null, bring it up here, sorry, not null, tag, and we'll go back to the original and delete it out. There we go. Now inside of here, what we're going to do is hit U-Shift-S, subdivide it maybe just 4 times, maybe 5 times. So if you do it 5 times, right, you want to do it 5 times. What you do is you U-Shift-S, and this time you don't type in 5 because that's going to always stack. So you just do 1 more time. There we go. And now we take that, throw that in the remesher, boop, and make sure we transfer the attributes. Let that cook. And then when we, now we have that much more evenly spaced out. It's looking really good. We're going to go ahead and hit C, make it editable. There we go. And we're going to need to put that tag back on that control and drag, because when you take it off, I don't know why I put it on the end. Yeah, I like it to be right here in the front. Okay. There we go. Okay, so we put that here. So now we have these 2 individual walls set up properly for us. Very nice. So now we should not see a difference between these 2 walls, where before we saw a very big difference. But now we should have both walls look nice, because we control click drag the Redshift tag. It brings in all of our attributes here. That's why I did that rather than just adding a new tag. It just has everything enabled and set to the right settings already. So now it will come in, and it should not warp our wall. It's just gonna look good. There you go. So hopefully that helps answer some questions on how to troubleshoot and fix geometry that's UV mapped and stuff. Obviously, this is I feel like a really good example of it. Hopefully there's always going to be different scenarios and things where it's not going to work as well. So that would be my biggest takeaways, would be get the geo low enough but not super dense, and then use Redshift to go on top of it. Okay, and then the second thing would be to remesh it and make sure you transfer attributes. Now, on top of that, you want to make sure, I had something else I was going to say. On top of that, you want to make sure that you have your displacement settings in your nodes set up properly so they're not pushing everything out and they're actually splitting in between. And then that should work very well with the rest of your objects and things and not cause any issues. Now, obviously, it may lead to the fact that you might now need to go in and be like, oh, actually, that looks so good. I want to do that to everything. Totally fine. That would be the third thing of advice, is do everything in tiny little compartments like this, where I did this wall, done, moved on to another wall, done, rather than trying to select the whole scene, re-subdivide all of it at once, and then remesh all of it at once, because it's just going to freeze up C40 and not work. But when you do it in little tiny chunks, it should be fine. Tedious? Yeah, but I would say that the results are pretty worth it, because that looks so much better than before. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. Like, so now, obviously, if you had like this torch here, let's just grab a light. We'll do Redshift light, and we'll do a sphere. Make it very small, like a 5 and 5, 5, 5, 5. And we'll use our placement tool, and we'll put it right here on this torch. Maybe right on the tip. There we go. And maybe we scale it up because maybe it does need to be a little bit bigger. There we go. And we'll make it like sort of this reddish color, reddish orange. Here we go. And probably need to add, well, actually, if it's an area light, this is probably fine. You can see, boom, we have like this nice, the displacement adds so much because we're getting those little crevices and stuff in between where we weren't getting it before, so we can lower the bloom threshold and really, make that, blow out that torch a little bit. But yeah, so now you can have like this really nice, cool, like details and things that just added where before it wouldn't look near as nice and detailed. So yeah, let's take a look at it from like the side here. Again, really where you're going to see the biggest difference. And then we'll turn off displacement. So this is what we see now. This looks pretty good. Whereas we take it off, you can see how it's like catching the highlights here on the edges of these rocks, but not in the gap here in between. Like that kind of stuff is really what makes displacement worth it. So we'll go ahead and snapshot that. And then we'll come down here and we will grab our light here, or this, and just turn off the Redshift tag. And that's going to basically take all our displacement away, and we'll be left with what we had originally, which is just the bump map. And again, you can see like the quality difference between this shot and this shot. This looks like, you found an asset and you threw a texture on it and you didn't really know what you were doing too much, but it's like good enough, right? And you're like, okay. But this looks like, okay, this is a cool little castle model they've got here. This looks nice, okay? So that hopefully will help, just elevate your displacement stuff and allow you to troubleshoot just a little bit easier with that Redshift displacement, because it can be kind of a pain to figure that out. And a lot of people, excluding me included, again, thank you, Mr. Exocomp, Adam, for the info on the Remesh tool with that transfer attribute button to keep those tags. That's huge. So we were able to do that. And again, if we really wanted to, we could come in here and just do it piece by piece for whatever bit you wanted. It would probably be really nice. These models are so detailed. You can come in here and inside the wall, let's see what's in this room. Let's go in. Anything? Nothing. Cool though. Okay, so that is going to work. That process is going to work across models all over the place rather than just buildings. But it was really helpful for stuff that had hard corners and hard stops to actually work nicely and work together. And so hopefully that helped you figure out how to use Redshift Displacement with models and stuff like that a little bit better, a little quick workflow tip to get that displacement working nicely without screwing up your model and your UVs. I haven't tested it myself, but this process should work for photogrammetry scans as well. So someone wants to try that and let me know. Michael, I'm looking at you. Okay, let's go. If your name's Michael and you're not the Michael I'm talking about, I'm not talking about you. Michael will know the Michael I'm talking about. Okay, bye.